I've come out because I wanted to. It's the first sunny day. The weather forecast is good for the week, and we've all been a little bit kept indoors by 10 days of rain. And so, like a cuckoo clock, the weather has turned and I've come out to play. And this morning's agenda is no agenda. This is prompted by watching a Rupert Spira YouTube video, which a friend of mine on Lanzarote recommended, which I found very helpful, about how to deal with unwanted interactions, or what he terms ego to ego interactions. You're familiar with the situation. You're quite happy in your own little world of whatever it is that you're preferring to do, and there's a knock on the door, or there's a telephone call, or an email that needs responding to, and it sort of jumps you out of your agenda or non-agenda. Perhaps you're in idle mode, just enjoying your own space, and something invades your peaceful bubble and you feel the pull, the ought to respond, or you feel perhaps like a pinball in a pinball machine. The flippers flipped your ball, and you have to play the game of being fully engaged in the world. And what lovely Rupert said. He's also a ceramicist, a potter, and I have a lot of time for Rupert Spira for two reasons. He's hands-on, literally, because he's a potter, and he relates his awakening experience to nitty-gritty real life of experience and perceptions. But secondly, he's very clear in his own terms of reference about what the experience of self-realization or awakening is. The highlight, I suppose, that I take from his teachings on YouTube, I've not been to one of his sessions. I've been to a few others, but not to Rupert Spira, only on YouTube, is that the only thing that we can truly know is experiencing, and it always takes place here and now in the present moment. It's such this is such an obvious truism. It's great, isn't it? The only thing you will ever experience is what's here and now. You will never experience the future, and you can't re-experience the past. So everything is experienced in the here and now. And what he suggests, which is an interesting challenge, just to reflect on this, is that the only thing that you can say really is that experiencing happens. You can't actually locate this separate little me as the subject of experience, encountering objects, experiences in the world. Everything is an experience. You might say an experience in the brain, I suppose, or more helpfully, experiencing in consciousness. And this consciousness, if you look at it, has no edge to it. It has no boundaries. But coming back to the agenda of no agenda, if my O-level Latin serves me well, which is very vague, agenda is, I want to say, the obligative. I don't know if that's a tense. A bit like memoranda are things that ought to be remembered. Agenda, or actually, I think the Latin would pronounce it agenda, but I might be wrong there. I'm usually wrong about most things these days. Agenda is things that ought to be done, from ago, to do, as in agadoo means to shake that tree. And much of our modern lives are, I would say, 80%, 90% agenda driven, to-do list driven. When I was married, it gave my ex-wife enormous pleasure and sense of satisfaction of ticking off the last item on her to-do list. Very good, and well done there. For me, getting to the end of a to-do list means that you can take time out and go for a coffee. But my lovely ex-wife just rubbed her hands, sharpened her pencil, and wrote the next to-do list. So life can become one long to-do list, until, of course, you fall off the edge of the paper, and at the end of life, then what is a life of ticked to-do lists? That would make an interesting exhibition, I think. Collate written to-do lists. Well, yeah, handwritten to-do lists usually, from all sorts of different people, and stick them as a collage in some exhibition. Anyway, I digress. I've got workbook to-do lists, business related, going back years for my various businesses. I have to say, I'm pretty shit hot when it comes to prioritising and ticking off my to-do lists. I'm sure you're familiar with the 4 quadrants of how to prioritise your to-dos as well. Along the bottom axis, the x-axis, you put important and not important. It probably works the other way around, actually. Not important and important. And on the y-axis, the vertical axis, you put non-urgent and urgent. So that gives you 4 squares, 4 quadrants. The bottom left it's not important and not urgent, and so you just, whatever goes into there from your to-do list, don't do it. That was my favourite. Don't do it. If it's top right, that is, it's important and urgent. Whatever goes in there, do it now. Then there's the important but not urgent. And in there you could include projects that you have a real passion for, but of course you need to invest some time in it. So that's, I think, top left, urgent but not important but not urgent, and that is planet. So you have to schedule some time planning. And what's the other one? So it's oh yes, I remember this one. It's urgent but not important. Get somebody else to do it. This it works found this worked very effectively in various businesses over the years. But we are talking. Well, I'm trying to talk about having no agenda. Is it the same as going with the flow? Not quite, because in this no agenda sense of being rather than doing, it's not that you are allergic to the things that happen or you want to avoid or escape or sidestep them. It's that you are open to all possibilities and you're not trying to protect this selfish little clod, as George Bernard Shaw, I like to quote him, I've quoted him several times already, this selfish little clod wondering why the world doesn't devote itself to making you happy. It's not about that. You might get, as I did the other day, a call from your ex-neighbour wanting you to pick up her brother's or someone's prescriptions from the chemist. That's a very small example, but I think you know what I mean. People turn up unexpectedly very often in Bakewell, and it's very nice to drop what I'm doing, my urgent and important little me agenda, my to-do list, and yes, in that sense, go with the flow and just enjoy a walk or a coffee or a chat or well, you can't cry on somebody's shoulder in these restricted days. It's going to have an enormous knock-on effect, I believe, our physical, social distancing. But I digress again. I think the most salient aspect of living agendaless, not genderless life is, firstly, you're open to the surprising and the new, and that includes epiphanies about life. Simply taking the time to watch and look. I sat by the river the other evening, dusk, and watched the swallows taking the mayflies on the river. Absolutely mesmerising. I'd never seen swallows move so fast or eat so fast. Extraordinary. So there's a great lightness of being, you might say, in living without agenda. You know the feeling. It's the kick-off, the sandals holiday feeling, ice cream in hand, Sunday paper or whatever, build a sandcastle on the beach, that sort of feeling. But imagine replicating that every day or even every moment if possible. Things still get done, of course they do, but it's a much lighter touch, and you're not so much the pinball being banged about by the flippers of life and the great pinball machine of life, but you are somehow you are the wizard. You are, as the Who might say, you are the pinball wizard. You're the observer of everything that comes and goes, and it's a choice to is it a choice to participate? Sometimes you don't have a choice as such, but there is a sense of being unaffected, like the willow tree just opposite on the bridge. I'll give you a quick look. Lovely in full leaf by the river, and you can see that it's quite happy, stood there on the banks of the river, but there's quite a a breeze this morning, and of course the branches and the leaves, they move about, they sway in the breeze, and that's a bit of a hackneyed analogy, but when you're the observer, when you're the pinball wizard, everything is play. In Indian philosophy, there is this word Layla, or Leela. I think Layla is another song by another band. Layla was an Eric Clapton song, wasn't it? That's right. But Leela is in Indian philosophy, if I'm right. I'm only an amateur philosopher. Means play, that the whole of life is reality, is an illusion, and everything is play. It's fine if you can treat it like that and get away with it. But there are essentially two modes of being, it seems to me. There's doing and there's being. And each of us, I guess, is a mixture of both, but we sort of, I think we have a default orientation in our lives, probably to one end of that spectrum or not. We're a doer or a beer. I'm just reminded of a lovely old friend of mine from St Thomas's in Crooks, Doug Tiffin. Very, very amusing guy. Sometimes drove his wife Pam to distraction. He had being off to a fine art. I'm not so sure about the doing. Bless him. Bumped into him here in Bakewell a couple of years ago. Where are you now, Doug? So there's the doers, and I think I'm on the side of the beers, with the emphasis on being. Coming back to one of my favourite psalms, I've forgotten what number it is. I think it's Psalm 43. I might be wrong there. Be still and know that I am God. I use this most mornings in my meditation, looking out over the rooftops of Bakewell and the starlings feeding their young in the chimney pots on the rooftops. Be still and know that I am God. And the more I meditate on that, or use that as a sort of a handrail, the more it sinks in that being still, the being bit, comes before the knowing bit. And you could extrapolate that into knowing then leads on to doing. But prior to doing is knowing, and prior to knowing is being still, or let's just abbreviate that to being. And that is the best possible starting point for, I think, an examined life that is well worth living. Check it out.